I was 82 years old when the nurse handed me the phone, her face tight with that practiced sympathy they teach in medical school. My hands shook so badly I could barely grip it, the plastic slick against my palm. On the other end was my son's voice, strained and hollow. "Dad, Mom just passed." The words landed like a physical blow, but not for the reason you'd expect. It wasn't Margaret's death that shattered me in that moment. It was the sudden, blinding realization that in 52 years of marriage, I had never once, not a single time, said the three words she longed to hear more than anything: "I love you." Not on our wedding day when she glowed in white lace. Not when our daughter came into the world screaming. Not on anniversaries marked by store-bought cards. Not during quiet evenings when we sat side by side on the porch watching fireflies dance in summer twilight. I thought love was proven through action. Paying mortgages, fixing leaking roofs at 2 a.m., making sure there was always food in the fridge and clothes on the kids. Words seemed superfluous, sentimental even. Now, standing in that sterile hospital corridor with the phone still warm against my ear and the echo of my son's voice hanging in the air, I understood my greatest, most unforgivable mistake. Silence isn't strength. Silence is slow poison that kills love one unspoken day at a time. If you're in a relationship right now, married, dating, with parents or children you cherish, and those words feel heavy or awkward on your tongue, please, I beg you, listen to my story. Because I promise you this, one day you'll stand exactly where I am, wishing you'd spoken when it still mattered. My name was John, though names fade when the real you is stripped bare. I was the man everyone called solid, dependable, the kind you could set your watch by. For 42 years I worked as an engineer at the same factory, clocking in at 7:45 sharp, never missing a shift, never turning down overtime even when my back screamed and my eyes burned from blueprints. When Margaret and I married at 25, she was my opposite, sunlight to my stone, the woman who laughed loud at bad jokes and hugged strangers without hesitation. Our wedding was simple. Small church with wooden pews that creaked, reception for 50 in the basement hall, vows exchanged quickly because I hated being watched. That first night in our cramped one-bedroom apartment smelling of fresh paint, she looked up at me from the bed, eyes shining like I'd hung the moon, and whispered, "John, I love you more than anything in this world." I nodded, patted her shoulder awkwardly, and mumbled, "Me too." She waited, breath held, for elaboration that never came. I thought that was enough. After all, hadn't I just married her? Didn't that prove everything? Actions would speak louder, I told myself, and for years they seemed to, or at least I convinced myself they did. I climbed corporate ladders while she built our nest. First house payment, check. Daughter's ballet lessons, covered. Son's braces and baseball gear, handled. Company picnics where colleagues slapped my back while Margaret smiled beside me in sundresses she'd sewn herself. We were picture perfect on the outside, the couple who made it work. But beneath the surface, something vital was eroding, and neither of us had words for the fracture. Margaret tried, God knows she tried. 6 months into marriage, she started leaving notes everywhere. "Have a great day, love you forever," tucked into my steel-toed boots. "Can't wait to hold you tonight, red heart," steamed onto the bathroom mirror. I'd find them during lunch breaks, smile privately, feel a warmth spread through my chest, then crumple them without reply. One evening she caught me mid-read, eyes hopeful. "Do you like them?" I shrugged, practical as always. "They're sweet. You know how I feel." Her smile flickered like a candle in wind, but she recovered with that armor she wore so well. "Of course I do," she said softly. "That was my first warning shot, clear as day in hindsight. Love demands voice, not just presence. But I've been raised by a father of few words, who showed love through calloused hands fixing bicycles and bringing home steady paychecks. Real men don't talk feelings," he'd grunt over dinner. "You show, don't tell." So I showed, double shifts for her mother's medical bills, new tires when snow came early, Christmas bonuses straight into savings. Margaret thanked me with cheek kisses and packed lunches, but her eyes always searched mine for the words I withheld like precious currency. The distance grew like ivy on an untended house, slow, steady, covering everything. Conversations shrank to logistics. Dinner's at 6, don't be late. Car needs oil tomorrow. Kids have dentist at 3. Intimacy became scheduled maintenance, then sporadic, then memory. Margaret reached out in waves. Date nights at Italian places where she'd hold my hand across checkered tablecloths, hoping for compliments that stayed locked in my throat. Shirts she picked because blue brings out your eyes, which I wore once then folded away. The marriage retreat she booked for a weekend in the mountains. I canceled it 2 days before, claiming a critical deadline. She never yelled, never issued ultimatums. That's what drew me to her originally, her endless grace. What I mistook for patience was slow starvation. About 15 years in, I came home to find her alone in the kitchen at midnight, staring into an empty coffee cup under harsh fluorescent light. "Everything all right?" I asked, loosening my tie. She looked up, eyes unfamiliar, hollowed, distant. "Do you still love me, John?" The question hung like smoke. My stomach twisted, but pride surged. "What kind of question is that? Of course I do. 52 years. Doesn't that prove it?" She nodded, mustered her trademark smile, murmured, "Just needed to hear it," and cleared the table. I grunted, shuffled to bed. That was our last honest conversation about us. From then on, we became expert roommates, dividing chores, attending kids' graduations, nodding through holidays. Love became a ghost we both pretended not to see. The children launched, college, jobs, their own families. We entered golden years that felt more like tarnished brass. We traveled once to Europe, awkward silences on trains, cruised the Caribbean, separate books by the pool. Margaret buried herself in gardening, coaxing roses from rocky soil. I took up golf, chasing dimpled balls into woods while avoiding feelings. Friends envied us, 40 years strong. "What's your secret?" We'd clink glasses and lie. Communication. No one saw the truth. We'd survived marriage, not lived it. Then Margaret faded. Fatigue first, dismissed as aging. Tests followed, then the oncology consult in a room smelling of antiseptic and despair. Stage 4. 6 months with aggressive treatment, maybe a year. She absorbed it calmly while I mentally cataloged specialists, trials, survival rates. Margaret did the opposite, sorted photo albums by decade, penned letters to unborn grandchildren, planned her service down to him choices. I raged at fate while she made peace. In her final months, our son visited daily, holding her hand through chemo fog, sharing hospital jello and memories. Our daughter read aloud from their childhood favorites, and of Green Gables, The Hobbit. I sat bedside, gripping her other hand, silent as stone, fixing nothing for once. One afternoon while she napped, I found her notebook beneath the pillow, leather-bound, pages dense with her careful cursive. Unspeakable treasure. Letters never mailed, most addressed to me. One stopped my heart. Dearest John, I always knew you loved me your way, through provision, protection, presence. But oh, how I longed to hear it from your lips. Not in deeds alone, but words that wrapped around my heart like arms. I carried that silence like a stone, wondering if I'd imagined our connection. If only once. Tears blurred ink as realization crashed. I'd given her every material comfort but starved her soul. In her last lucid week, as morphine softened edges, she grew reflective, almost childlike. Family gathered, stories flowed. The day before coma claimed her, she fixed those fading eyes on mine, truly saw me, and whispered, "John, it's okay. I know." Throat burning, I nodded. The words clawed up, "I love you." 3 syllables, lighter than air, heavier than worlds. They died unspoken. She smiled faintly, eyes closed. That was our ending. Her funeral filled the church, colleagues, neighbors, cousins thrice removed. Eulogies praised her grace, my partnership. Emptying her closet later, I found more notes in jacket pockets, recipe cards, "Love you today," in her looping script. Each stabbed deeper. Children noticed my withdrawal. "Dad," she knew, my daughter soothed. But did she? Or did she spend half a century waiting, wondering, weaving certainty from crumbs? Now I rattle around our too large house alone, her perfume lingering in drawers, photos watching from walls with eyes that seem to ask what I cannot answer. Friends urge dinners, travel. I decline. What's left to offer? My chance at love squandered through stubborn silence. My regret isn't her death. Mortality visits all. It's transforming living love into mausoleum love through nothing but pride and fear of softness. Words aren't weakness, withholding them is. If someone shares your life today and those syllables stick, speak them. Over burnt toast. In traffic jams. Scribbled on napkins. Don't wait for cold hands or echoing houses to learn their weight. Spoken love endures beyond breath. If this fool's failure stirred you, act before it hardens. Find your person, spouse, child, friend. Speak now while voices overlap. Write below if it reached you, "It's not too late to love." Let that be first proof against my ghost.